Okay, so welcome for today's session. We'll be continuing from where we had stopped. We had stopped at 2.59. So before that, we had done few verses. We'll just do a recap. So yeah, yeah. So basically, we are in this section where Krishna is talking about sthita pragya, self-realized soul, a equally equipoised person who is not um, carried away by happiness or distress, success or failure, disease or health, you know. And then Arjuna asks, oh, how does this person is? What are his general symptoms? Sorry, what are his general symptoms? How does he speak? Speak means when he receives praise or um, some blame, how does he respond to that? How does he sit? Sit means if there are sense objects around him, how does he control his senses? This is what we are discussing. And then later, how does he walk? Walk means how do he responds to sense objects? So in this regard, what we read was given example of a tortoise. So I'll just go to that tortoise. Huh. So if you see a tortoise, it can withdraw itself into the shell, and then when there is no danger, it comes out of the shell. If there is danger, it withdraws. And when there is no danger, it comes out. Similarly, when the sense objects are there around, the Sthita soul is fully engaging in spiritual activities. So he's not affected by that. Whereas even a yogi will find it difficult. In his mind, he'll be always troubled with sense objects. So using the help of tortoise, he says that Siddha withdraws his senses when a sense object comes. Okay. Now next is, this is a very important verse, 2.59. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinam raso varjan raso apyasya param drishta nivartate. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense objects, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he's fixed in consciousness. Now, the most important aspect here is the higher taste. What does it mean is, if somebody is like eating very, meager, low quality food, and then when he's given a full high quality food, do you think that person would again want to go back to his low quality food? No.
No.
So when he gets a higher taste, he doesn't take a lower taste. There are people who are working. When they get promoted, their salary is increased and all that, right? So so do you think they will again go back to their older jobs? No, they won't, because they have experienced the higher responsibility, the higher position, the higher pay, salary. So they don't want to go to the lower thing. Similarly, in spirituality also, if you experience the higher spiritual pleasure, one will give up the lower spiritual pleasure. This is how a sthita pragya is living in this world. He doesn't go for pleasures which are coming through contact of senses. He only takes what that is needed. He's like a lotus flower. Let me just show you a lotus flower, how it grows. Let's see. If you look at it, it doesn't touch the water. It doesn't touch the water. Generally, the stem comes out of it, right? So what it is doing is, it is only taking what is needed from the water. That is little bit of water through its stem. Otherwise, it is not touching the water. Similarly, a Sthitapagya soul he takes only what that is needed from the material world. Otherwise, he remains aloof from it, like a tortoise. And he has higher pleasure, so he does this thing. So most important thing is to get this higher pleasure. Otherwise, one will be, you know, um, one will have problems basically in spiritual life. Unless one is transcendently situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. You cannot stop sense enjoyment. Some enjoyment you need. And those who are transcendently situated, they don't even need any kind of sense enjoyment. At our level, we need some enjoyment because our senses are strong. We need to fulfill it. We need to nourish it. You know, so some enjoyment is needed. But transcendental level Sthitapagya, they don't even need anything. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatable. So when a person is diseased, we tell him don't eat this, don't eat that, right? A patient, however, he doesn't like those restrictions, nor loses his taste for eatables. But that restriction helps him to cure faster. Agreed? If somebody is having cough and he eats oily stuff, is the cough going to go away? If somebody is yeah, if somebody is having cold and he goes in the fridge and then pulls out a cold drink or cold water, it's not going to go away. So that restriction is needed when you're a diseased person. But when you become good, then that restriction goes away. Then one can eat oily stuff. But at that point, one knows that there are problems of eating this oily stuff too much. So he will eat only little bit or what that is required. So that is beyond restriction, right? It is control, regulation. So any enjoyment he does is within regulation, right? Um, those who drink, right? They say we just take one or two peg. Anything greater than two peg, three peg, four peg, meaning gone. You just become addicted to it, right? So control is more important. Similarly, sense restrictions by some spiritual progresses like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of yam, niyam, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana. So I was showing this picture. This person is doing that. Yam, niyam, asana, dharana, all that. Do's, don'ts, very strict. But what happens to them? Still the mind is not cleared. So sense objects is there. And there's a great story of Vishwamitra. He didn't even see the beautiful Menaka. What he just heard the ankle bends of Menaka. He just heard. And that was enough to open his eyes. You get it? So this restriction, it has an advantage, but it is not a complete advantage. Okay. So therefore, it is recommended for less intelligent people who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of Supreme Lord in course of his advancement of Krishna consciousness, no longer a taste for dead material things. So those who are engaged in Krishna's service, they are not at all interested in all this beauty and all that, material beauty. Therefore, restrictions are there for less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. So when he's actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. When that person is giving some higher taste, he loses the interest. He loses for that lower taste for the lower things. He can easily give up. Next, yato yato to sorry yatato यततो हि अपि कौन्तेय पुरुषाय विपश्चितः इंद्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि हरन्ति प्रशभम मनः. The senses are so strong and impetuous, oh Arjuna, they can forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. In today's world, many people are getting disturbed by Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, YouTube, right? Even when exam is there, still that thing pulls us, right? So even we may be strong and determined, but if one sense also is enough to pull us, even one sense is enough to pull us. There was an experiment with children, how much they can control. So they were told that if you wait for 10 minutes, you will get this marshmallow or you will get this cake. But if you don't wait for 10 minutes, then you will get this apple. And the children, they love sweet things, right? Some of them terribly failed. They didn't wait only, they ate it directly. So why? Because the thing was kept in front of them. So that's why when children are there, right, parents try to hide that thing. Don't show. If you show, means it's gone. The child wants it and it will cry. It will go on the ground. It will just do all kinds of terrible things. Okay. So Krishna is saying same thing happens with spiritualist also. In one sense, it is enough to disturb him because senses are very strong. So therefore, if senses are strong and impetuous, how to control them? If I ask you this thing, can you tell me some idea? What is your thought process? If senses are strong, how to control them?
Um, Maybe get rid of what is distracting us or what is making us, what is diverting our mind towards it.
Mm-hmm. So what will you do?
Um, for example, you gave the example of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter during exam. So better to just temporarily deactivate the account or keep our phone as well, like far away from us when we are doing our work.
Okay, okay. So we are giving some restrictions. We think of restrictions, basically. We think of some regulation.
Yes, correct.
Hmm?
That is, I guess, that is the easiest way.
Hmm. Uh, like suppose there is a sportsman and that sportsman is playing cricket. He plays cricket and he goes for a batting and it's a test match. Now, when he's batting, that gives him more pleasure because he's a sportsman, right? So at that point, he's not even thinking what is happening on Facebook, what is happening on WhatsApp, what happened on this, what happened on that, right? Why? Because at that point, his higher pleasure is coming through. He's playing the way, the focus that he's putting on, right?
It's like going into flow.
Yeah, going at a flow where you get a higher pleasure and then you don't even look at
Correct.
all
Correct.
this social media.
Yes, yes. We
Right?
can take example of mountain climbers, like they climb steep mountains. They have to be very focused, and one step wrong and they'll fall. So
Hmm.
they are like, for example, of flow I'm talking about. So they
Yeah,
are not at all distracted. They're like fully focused.
yeah, they have to be focused. Exactly. But the focus should be driven by some happiness that is, pulling it. Some higher happiness the person is getting. If a person is not getting higher happiness, then definitely one will be distracted by all this social media.
Can't
Getting?
we say satisfaction? Because happiness, yeah, like happiness, we will be getting happiness by using Instagram.
Yeah. So
Like,
this is a good point you said. Satisfaction. Yeah. This is a good point. Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita in the later chapters. He said we have to control the mind with satisfaction. We have to be happy with what we have. Hmm? We have to be happy with what we have. That feeling gives calmness and peace to a person, and then he doesn't look here and there. Getting?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But one may question, I want to be ambitious, this, that. It's okay to be ambitious, but with your ambition, with your hard work, with your effort, if you get something, then be satisfied with it. But again, one may say, no, I want to get more and more and more. Okay, you put effort. In spite of all this effort, if you don't get that thing and this is what you get, then be satisfied. Just don't be carried away with that feeling that I want to do this, I want to do that. Da, 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 no? So there is a certain thing Krishna says to be satisfied. Um, so we have to control our mind with satisfaction. We will we'll go into little deeper talk about it, but not now. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. There are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses. But in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them all sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. Even Vishwamitra, a great sage and a perfect yogi, was misled by Menaka into sex enjoyment. So I talked about that. He didn't even see Menaka. He just heard the ankle bills of it. Although the yogi was endeavoring to control senses with severe types of penance and yoga practice, and of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world. However, it is difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot cease such a material engagement. A practical example is given by Sri Yamunacharya. So uh, this is an acharya who lived, a spiritual teacher who lived almost 1,000 years ago. And there is a very interesting story with him. We'll finish this and then we will tell. I'll tell you the story. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I've been enjoying an ever increasing new transcendental humor. Whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it and I spit at that thought. So the whole world is running after sex life. Man after woman, woman after one man, animal after animal. That's it. Right? But those who are engaged in the service of Lord Krishna and they get pleasure from it, transcendental pleasure, not material pleasure, but spiritual pleasure. For them, the interest in sex life also reduces and it goes away. So this is a great thing. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendental nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man has satisfied his hunger by sufficient quantity of nutritious eatable. So if a hungry man gets enough to eat, then he's satisfied, right? See, this is a very interesting analogy of being satisfied. We are hungry, right? But are we hungry to the same quantity as elephant? No. On 26th January, there are these elephant who walk on the Rajpath in Delhi. Each elephant eats 40 chapatis per day. How many days will it require for us to eat 40 chapatis? You tell me. If a man eats 40 chapatis, how many days he will require?
Many days. Two,
It,
3 weeks.
2-3 weeks. But one day is enough for the elephant. So the hunger of the elephant, if it is satisfied, will it eat more? No. Same way, if the hunger of a man is satisfied, then he's happy. He's satisfied. So the point is, everyone's satisfaction is different. Okay. And if that is reached, then that is a state of satisfaction. So a devotee, a Krishna conscious person, what he does is, whatever sense enjoyment he requires, he first reduces it. He doesn't increase it, he reduces it. And he brings it to a level where, whatever simple satisfaction he's getting, he's satisfied with it. Whatever little bit nutrition he's getting, he's satisfied with it. Okay. So that's how he works. Maharaj Amrish also conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged in Krishna consciousness. Savai Mana Krishna Padaran. This is another great example. But I will tell the story of Sri Yamunacharya. This is a very interesting story. It's a 1,000-year-old story. So Yamunacharya was born in a very good family, in a Brahminical family, and he was learning under a spiritual science. He was learning and Vedic sciences. He was learning under a guru. One day, uh, a person comes and he defeats his guru in some argument, and Yamunacharya becomes angry. He says, how can you defeat my guru? I will challenge you. So that challenge is taken to the court of the king, and there Yamunacharya show his great intellect and defeats that other scholar who defeated his guru, and he defeats him. And in that, the king says, you will get half of my kingdom. And then Yamunacharya becomes half of the king of the half of the kingdom. And then he's living as a king, and he's controlling as a king, he's enjoying as a king. Many years passed. His grandfather is there in that village, and he's thinking, I wanted my son to become a Vedic scholar, to become a Brahmana, to become a devotee of Lord Krishna. And he's going after this kingly pleasures. How to get him back? So then his grandfather sends another Brahmana and tells him to feed a particular vegetable. That vegetable is in Chennai. It's a plant. To feed that plant to the king, to Yamunacharya, and you recite the Bhagavad Gita when he's nearby. So this happens for many days. He eats the vegetable and then he's walking by. He's hearing that somebody is chanting Bhagavad Gita. And after many days, he keeps hearing Bhagavad Gita, and Yamunacharya, from his heart, transformation happens. He says, long time ago, I was studying this Bhagavad Gita, and today I've forgotten about it. I'm after this king and kingdom and so many things I'm after, and I've forgotten about it. So he again comes back to that Brahmana and he says, what are you chanting? He says, I'm chanting Bhagavad Gita. And um, then he starts hearing Bhagavad Gita from that person. And then later on, such happiness develops in his heart that he says, I want to give up this kingdom. And he gives this kingdom to somebody and he returns back. And he becomes a great saint, Sri Yamunacharya. So when one gets higher pleasure, he leaves lower pleasure. Interestingly, everyone wants to in this world to become a king. And Yamunacharya achieved that. And when he achieving that, then he experienced pleasure in Bhagavad Gita, in the service of Lord Krishna. So you can imagine that there is higher spiritual pleasure in this. We have to just access it. Next verse. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matvarha vashehi indriyani tasya pragna patishthitaha. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. So first thing is we do have to restrain our senses. But not this should not be the only activity. What all should be the activity other than that? We should keep them under full control. They should be under our full control. And then our consciousness, our heart should be upon Krishna. This is the first time in Bhagavad Gita Krishna says something about himself. He puts him in the picture. Mat paraha. He says, put his consciousness upon Krishna. That person is a steady intelligence. Equipoised person is one who has put his consciousness on Krishna. Just like, some boy and girl, they get in love and their whole consciousness is on each other. They're always thinking about the other person, right? Similarly, a devotee is always thinking about Krishna. When that level happens, then it is a steady mind, steady intelligence. That is equipoised. That highest conception of yoga perfection is Krishna consciousness is clearly explained in this verse. Unless one is Krishna conscious, it is not at all possible to control his senses. As cited above, the great sage Durvasa Muni picked up a quarrel with Maharaj Amrish, and Durvasa Muni unnecessarily became angry out of pride and therefore could not check his senses. On the other hand, the king, although not as powerful as the yogi as a sage, but the devotee of the Lord, silently tolerated the sage's injustice and thereby emerged victorious. The king was able to control his senses because of the following qualifications. This is an important verse. This is another story. I will tell about this story also. King Amrish fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of Lord. We can read the Sanskrit. It's very beautiful. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayo vachamsi vaikunta gunanu varnane karo harer mandira marjanadushu shrutim chakra achutya satkathodayet मुकुन्दलिङ्गाय दर्शने दृशो तद्भृत्य गात्र स्पर्श अंग संगमम घृणम च तत्पाद सरोज सुरवे तस्मात् तुलस्य रसनम तद अर्पिते पादो हरे क्षेत्र पदानुसर्पणे शिरो ऋषिकेश पदाभिवंदने कामां च दास्यस्तु न काम्या यथोत्तम श्लोक जनाश्रय रतिहि. What did King Amrish Maharaj did every day? This is all he did. He fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of Lord, his hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the bodies of the devotee, his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his tongue in engaging the tulsi leaves offered to him, his legs in traveling to the holy places where his temple is situated, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. And all these qualifications made him fit to become Mat Paraha, devotee of the Lord. So we'll take one by one. How he fixed his mind. First thing, his words. He used to describe the abode of the Lord, to glorify the Lord. He used his words. His hands to clean the temple of the Lord. This is simple to understand. His ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord. Like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, he heard about that. His eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, the deity form of the Lord, the Archa Vigraha, the Murti form. His body in touching the body of the devotees, meaning touching their feet. His nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. See, we need to smell something, right? So these are flowers which are offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. The taste in tasting the tulsi leaves offered to him. So Krishna, we offer tulsi leaves to him. So that tulsi leaf, when we take from Krishna's feet, we should eat it. His legs in traveling to the holy place where his temple is situated. So there are many holy dhams like Pandharpur, Vrindavan, Mayapur, Mathura, Jagannath Puri, Sri Rangam. Hmm? So with his legs, he used to travel to these places. His head in offering obeisances to the Lord. Hmm? And his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. All these qualifications made him Mat Paraha devotee. See, this is what we have to become. A spiritual person has to do all these things. Use his words in describing the glories of the Lord. Hands in cleansing the Lord. Cleansing the temple, meaning you do service in the temple, you do service for the Lord. His ears, what we should hear? Not Bollywood music, but pastimes of the Lord. His eyes in seeing the form of the Lord. His body in touching the body of the devotee. His nostrils to smell the flavor of the flowers. Tongue in tasting tulsi and prasad. Legs not to go to some cinema halls or uh, you know, drinking social events or places, but to the temple, to the holy places. Head, we offer our head as obeisances to the Lord, and then it desires and fulfilling the desires of the Lord. There are desires of the Lord to spread his Bhagavad Gita, to spread his message. So you engage in that. Then one becomes Mat Paraha devotee. Mat Paraha devotee means he becomes dear to the Supreme Lord. Now, this is the process of bhakti. By doing this process, one gets higher pleasure. Is this clear? Any questions on this?
No, sir.
Yeah. So these are activities. This is the key to spiritual life. If somebody wants to be in spiritual life, in the Vedic tradition, this is all he has to do. And then the purification of heart happens. Then satisfaction comes. Then one is happy. One doesn't go and use his senses in other uh, frivolous activities. Okay. The word Matparaha is the most significant in this collection. How can one become Matpara is described in the life of Maharaj Amrish. Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan, a great scholar and acharya in the line of Matparaha, remarks the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to the Lord. If one wants to control the senses, he should not control from the left hand side, but do the right thing. Engage, see the form of the Lord, use our service in cooking for the Lord, in cleaning the temple, and eat prasad, vegetarian food which is offered to the Lord. All this activity, then senses can be controlled. Otherwise, in the left side, you cannot control. One falls down eventually. Very difficult. Here, one gets higher pleasure. Then he can give up the lower pleasure. Even this control is achieved just by practicing. Also, the example of fire is sometimes given. A blazing fire burns everything within a room. Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of a devotee, burns up all kinds of impurities. So now, when one tries to do the above activities, Krishna, who is within the heart, Vishnu, who is within the heart, he helps in doing that. He helps to remove all kinds of impurities. Just like a fire, you put him in any place, it will burn the whole place, right? Similarly, Krishna is like that. You put him in your heart, he will do the rest of the work. The Yoga Sutra also prescribes meditation on the Vishnu and not meditation on the void. The so-called yogis who meditate on something other than Vishnu form simply waste their time in vain search after some phantasmagoria. Though we have to be Krishna conscious, devoted to the personality of God, this is the aim of life. See, there are some people who say we have to meditate, but what to meditate on? They say meditate on zero or meditate on nothing. But that is all wrong. The Yoga Sutras, which they access to do their so-called yoga, that also prescribes to meditate on Vishnu. And here Krishna is also saying you need to do my meditation. And Maharaj Amrish fixed his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. You getting? So this is the real yoga. Okay. Next two verses are very amazing ones. Dhayato Vishaya Pumsa Sangasteso Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Abhijayate. Here is the process of how a fall down happens. We'll talk more about this next week also. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. If you can give me 1 minute, I want to find out something. There was a very nice cartoon. If I can quickly find out. Um, um, Somehow I'm not able to find it. Okay. Okay, maybe next week I will show you about that cartoon. But it was very instructive cartoon on this particular topic. I will search for it and I will bring it up next week. So today, yeah, let's see. Okay, okay. Today we'll complete the next two verses, 62, 63, and then next week I'll give again a short summary on that. So, how does our senses work, and how do they make us fall down? Fall down means not literally fall down, but fall down means how does it make us uncontrolled? You know, how does anger arises? So here is how Bhagavad Gita explains. While contemplating the object of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. Um, Let me quickly check one thing here. Okay, I have another PPT to show about it. Hmm. So this is the verse that we are discussing. Dhyato vishaya pumsa sangas teju pachayate. Sangat sanjayate kama kamat krobadhijayate. So one looks at it and then one gets attached to it. First is thinking stage, contemplating on the object of the senses. One keeps thinking about, now I want to buy the next model of the phone and all that. Thinks, and then becomes attached to it. Lust develops. From that attachment, lust develops. Then he wants to get it, but it is not available in the market. So he becomes angry. When lust is not satisfied, he becomes angry. Then delusion happens. Delusion means one forgets. And one forgets what is right and wrong. And in that, he makes a decision. Hmm? He makes a decision which is basically loss only. At first one thinks that, oh, I'll be very happy with that person, but later on, fights happen between the both of them. So it is not just between attraction between man and woman, it is between anything, any sense object and um, senses. Okay, one who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to the material desires while contemplating on the objects of the senses. The senses require real engagement. And if they are not engaged in transcendental service of the Lord, they will certainly cease engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to say nothing of all other demigods in the heavenly planet, is subjected to the influence of sense objects. I'll finish reading this, then we'll talk. And the only method to get out of this puzzle, material existence, become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him from sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal. And as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee, he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi, but Haridas Thakur easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Krishna. As illustrated in the above mentioned verse of Sri Yamunacharya, a sincere devotee of the Lord shuns all material enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. One who is not therefore in Krishna consciousness, therefore, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses, by artificial repression is surely to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. We go to the next verse. क्रोधात भवति सम्मोहात सम्मोहात भवति स्मृति विभ्रमा स्मृति भ्रंशात बुद्धिनाशात प्रणश्यति. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into material pool. Srila Rupa Goswami gives us this direction. By development of Krishna consciousness, one can know everything that has to use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects, and as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain the perfect stage of renunciation. The so-called renunciation is called falgu, or less important. On the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. This is a very important statement. A Krishna conscious person, a spiritual person, knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. When a company gives somebody a rent, I mean, a mobile as a rent, or car, if a person, he knows how to use it only for the purpose of the company, they will never get attached to that, right? When they have to give it up, they'll easily give it up. For example, for an impersonalist, the absolute being impersonal cannot eat. Whereas a impersonalist try to avoid good eatables, a devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So eating, we need eating to survive, right? But there are impersonalists. These are other class of spiritual people who think eating is, we have to control our eating, restrict. So they eat very little. Whereas a devotee, he eats, but he knows how to do that. He will cook good food, vegetarian food, without onion garlic and offer it to the Lord and eat and be happy with that. He doesn't have to struggle what the impersonalist is doing. So artificial control is not required. A devotee is intelligent enough. So after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotee takes the remnants, calls prasadam. Thus everything becomes spiritualized and there is no danger of downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. The impersonalist therefore cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation, and for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. In it is said that such a soul, even though rising up to the point of liberation, falls down again to having no support of devotional service. So, in this regard, I have a very nice example. Let me. Yeah. I've taken two examples. Okay. This one and this is the fall down, which Krishna explains. So let's put it up here. So what first Krishna says? Contemplation on sense objects. One looks at it and then develops attachment. Then he develops lust, strong desire to enjoy. I want it. Without it, I cannot be happy. Okay. Where did it go? And he develops anger if something comes in the way of his enjoyment. And when he becomes angry, he forgets what is to be done or not done. His memory is also lost. His intelligence is lost and he does something which he should not do. That is how process of 62.63 is said. Okay. I'll give you an example. First is a small child. He looks at a toy in the market and he desires to have it. Okay. Then he develops attachment for it because he keeps looking at it. And if he gets to play with it, he develops a lot of attachment. And when the parents are about to go, what will they say? We cannot buy. And the child immediately understands, I won't have it. So it cries. It becomes angry. Sorry, first it becomes angry. No, I want it. In that anger, he forgets his relationship with the parent, that he's dependent. And he forgets what is not to be done. What does the child do in such case? Its intelligence is lost. Memory is lost. It hits the parent only. The child starts hitting the parent only when it should not, right? They start howling and creating a fuss over the tire. They fall down to the ground. And then they fall down. See, this is how their fall down happens. Then the parents use strong words and force them to correct them. So you see how Bhagavad Gita verse we can understand from a behavior of a small child. Is this clear? Is this understanding clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Another example is I took of a criminal. See, he wants to get some gold and jewels. He keeps looking at the pictures of gold and jewel, the shops of the gold and jewel. I want that gold. I want this gold. I'll get 70 lakhs by that. I'll get 1 crore from this. But he doesn't have money. So he becomes angry. I don't have money, but I will steal. In anger, he thinks I will steal. He forgets. He forgets in that anger that stealing is bad. Police will be after him. His memory is lost. He forgets that he was caught before. That also he forgets. He forgets that even his friend who's tried to steal, he also got caught. And he's in jail for 10 years. He forgets all that. Then he misuses his intelligence. His intelligence is lost. Then he starts planning for the crime. One night he goes and he breaks the door. He gets into that and then he takes the gold and runs away. After a few days, he's caught by the police. Then they put him in jail. That's how his fall down has happened. Getting?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So these two examples, we could understand what Krishna is trying to say here. So Krishna, how what he says, how to overcome this. If we have higher taste, then we won't be interested in all this. The small child, if he knows that, oh, I have a good parent and let me listen to them. I have a good toy at home. I don't need this toy. Then he'll be happy. He's happy with higher pleasure. Hmm? Criminal, he's satisfied with whatever he has. See, I work this much, I get this much, that's it. It is not my capacity to buy this gold and jewel. If I want to buy, then I will work hard and then buy, but I won't steal. When he has this higher kind of understanding, then he gives up the lower tendencies to go and steal, right? Similarly, we are in this world, we are enjoying this world, you know try to enjoying this world here and there. But when we get spirituality, we become happy in that, and then we are not concerned of the material happiness. We'll only take that much which is required. So so this is the key. Okay, so we have like 2 minutes left. Let's open up for some questions or comments, otherwise we can close. Any questions, comments?
No, sir. It was clear everything with this three analogies, three stories.
Yeah, next time I will show pictures also. That will
Yes,
make
yes,
it even more clear. Somehow
yes,
I
sir.
couldn't find it. So let's stop here and meet next week. We'll continue
Yes,
with
sir.
uh, where are we? 2.64.
6-4.
Yeah. So we'll continue with 2.64 and we'll do some revision of
Yes, sir.
2.62. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Yes, sir.